Today, I want to walk you through the Instagram strategy that generates leads on autopilot. This is the same strategy that generated 7,783 leads in the past 30 days and has generated over $4 million for my own coaching business, all without spending a dollar on paid ads. See, most creators make content that gets views but doesn't generate much revenue. So we're going to cover my carousel strategy that reached 19 million people in a month and the story strategy that generated a ton of leads from just one post alone, and how AI helps me write content in about 2 hours per week, and actually what to do once you get those leads into your inbox. So let's get into it. So if you don't know, carousels are one of the biggest cheat codes on Instagram right now. So let's actually pull up my analytics on my phone right here, right now. So as you can see, in the last 30 days, I've generated over 1.5 million views, but that's not even the coolest part, because if we actually look at the last 90 days as a whole, you can see that I've generated 25 million views organically. That's 0% from paid ads. I think what's actually really interesting is that 91.8% came from posts, and the only posts that I put out are carousels. So let's first things first actually look at the top content over the last 3 months. So as you can see, it's all carousels, and that's when we really started to switch up the strategy and focus and double down on copy. Not only is this bringing in a ton of views, these are actually converting to leads. So like I said, I generated in the last 30 days over 7,000 leads, and that came mostly from carousels and Instagram stories. So let's just take a look here at one of my most viral carousels in the last 90 days. This one's saying raise your price. So as you can see, this got 238 reshares, 3,500 saves, and over 900 comments. Now keep in mind, I use ManyChat, so half of those comments are actually coming from me responding to people, and it's not always the carousels with the most views and the most reach that gets you the most comments. So you have to understand, what are you actually creating content for? Are you creating content for opt-ins, for views, or for shares? Because each one will have a different intent behind it. So as you can see here, the views are mostly coming from the explore page, which tells us that new people are discovering my account. Now, you can't expect that you're just going to make top of funnel content and people are going to say, here's $5,000 to buy your course. You actually now need to put them through a funnel, but we'll get to that in another video. So let's go back here for a second and let's look at more analytics. So for example, this post, even though it got a good amount of views, it really didn't get a lot of comments. But if we look at this post, okay, so this post is called How to Use Claude to Write Viral Carousels. So the comments actually outpaced the likes, and this is a lot better for business owners because once again, likes don't mean anything. Comments can actually turn into opt-ins and qualified leads for your product. So do I care that this got only 880 likes, but it got over 1,000 comments? I actually think that's better because I'm not optimizing for likes, I'm optimizing for comments, because then you can actually take people off the platform, put them onto your email list, but also get them into your DMs to start a sales conversation. Let's also look at one of my clients' accounts, Elizabeth. We taught her this same carousel strategy and how to actually use Claude AI. And she's not a business coach or a social media coach. She is just a mentor for photographers, teaching them how to grow their business as a photographer. So sure, maybe it's an adjacent niche, but it's different. And this goes to show that this works for many different niches, not just Instagram coaching or content coaching. Because I get that objection a lot where people say, well, Giulia, you're talking about Instagram on Instagram. But this goes to show that when you look at the analytics on Liz's post, you can actually see that this same strategy got her thousands of new leads for her offers. Not only did they both go viral, they generated her over 1,000 leads and she grew over 1,000 followers. And then she actually let us know in the first few days of January, she made $15,000 off the back end of these new leads. And that just goes to show you that any type of content can work if you have a good strategy behind it. So transparently, I grew my business on B-roll reels and talking reels, and I've been a creator for over 7 years. I got to a point where I really wanted to lean into copywriting because I understood that they're easy to design, easy to create with AI, and they can actually be systematized so I can have my team helping me out with them. So I just want to share with you that whatever format you're enjoying creating in, that's the one that's going to do the best because you can stay consistent with it. I would rather see a consistent strategy over a viral strategy any day. But if I'm being honest with you, carousels are only 20% of my actual content to client strategy on Instagram. The biggest secret sauce for online coaches and service providers using Instagram is the Instagram stories. You see, a lot of people know the 3-slide framework of Instagram stories where you post the opener slide and then the body and then the call to action, but that actually does not work anymore. The secret to Instagram stories is not what you think, and it's not a strategy that I actually see a lot of people talking about. To be honest, I think most people are gatekeeping it, and that's why I'm going to share it with you exactly in this video. You see, audiences aren't stupid. The market is extremely sophisticated, and people know when you're trying to sell them something. So what you need to do instead is, instead of asking people to just buy your thing and your program's launching and you're accepting new clients, you actually have to use the single story slide strategy and let your previous stories expire and then just put out one story with exactly what you want to say. And then me and my team actually flipped the normal way of doing stories on its head, and we decided to do something different. Instead of using stories to just convert clients right then and there, we actually started using stories to generate even more freebie opt-ins and leads. So let's take a look at this post right here. This post is my AI prompts story slide that pretty much goes viral on my stories every single time I try and post it. And when I say viral on my stories, I mean generating hundreds of leads. We generated a record high number of leads on my Instagram story when I posted this a couple days ago. I got over 400 opt-ins, and then even better, I piggybacked off of it the next day and I said, if you missed it, I just had my highest converting story ever. I got at least another 100 opt-ins. So this is now a record high of over 500 opt-ins on one Instagram story for my freebie. Now, my freebie strategy is a little bit different this year, and it's actually working a lot better to bring in way more qualified leads. So we'll get to that later in this video. But I want to explain to you exactly how you can use this quiet story strategy. And to be honest, I used AI to write this. I didn't even think of it myself. So the quiet story strategy is when one post pops off, you piggyback off of it the next day, you show the social proof, and you give people this sense of FOMO because maybe they weren't on stories that day, or maybe they overlooked it and they didn't opt in, or maybe they're genuinely curious how this strategy worked, and sometimes they even opt in again, and that's an even better lead to reach out to. So here's what's crazy. Remember how I told you the story that generated over 500 leads I didn't even write? I used Claude, an AI tool that if you are not using it, you are missing out. So I'm going to show you exactly how I write these kind of stories in just a couple of minutes using this one simple strategy inside of Claude. Let's get into my screen. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that your Claude is already programmed with everything that it needs to know about you. So for example, you're going to want to make sure that your Claude has your brand guidelines, your tone, has examples of past posts that have performed, so that when it's giving you responses, it's not actually just giving you a response based on its own knowledge, it's based on your knowledge that you've fed it already. So you kind of want Claude to be your second brain. I know for me, I'm working on a big personal brand playbook that's even deeper, telling Claude every single thing about every single piece of content, my tone, uploading more proof, and continuing to train it to make it better and better. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is I'm always gonna take an example of a story that I liked and then show Claude the example first and say, here's how I want to do it. This is a very similar strategy that I use when it comes down to making any piece of content. I always do research before creating anything, because remember, you're creating content as a business owner, not just as a creator. So let's do this. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna download the post that has popped off in the past, and then we're gonna upload it right into Claude. Okay, so we're gonna say, here is an example of a story post I did that generated 500 plus leads. I want to use this single story slide framework and use the CTA prompts. Can you please pull the framework from this story and give me 5 other versions that I can use to promote my AI prompts freebie. So I like to start with it giving me some food for thought, and then I really think about, like, is this what I'm trying to say? So I think there's 2 things that make a really good story. Number 1 is the framework behind it, like the actual way in which you say it. But then number 2 is the actual contents of it and saying, what am I trying to teach here? So as you can see, the single story flight framework is there's a hook, there's an offer, and there's a CTA. So here's an example. Still staring at a blank screen for 30 minutes trying to write 1 caption. That's why you're posting 3 times a week instead of 25. Today I'm giving away the 27 AI prompts I used to create a week of high converting content in under 2 hours. The same prompts that helped me scale to $2 million a year. Reply prompts and I'll send them now. Now, I think that's great. Obviously, I have to change the nitty gritty about my business and what I want to say. But I think these are all great because all you're doing is you're hitting a different pain point, but you're using the same framework. So as you can see here, in version 1, the pain point is the staring at the blank scene angle. But then in version 2, it's the generic content angle. So what makes really great content is just changing the wrapping paper, not actually changing the post itself. Because if something worked in the past, it's gonna work again and again and again. But maybe this time around, it will resonate with somebody who's like, I often stare at the blank screen, but maybe not the person who is stuck creating generic content. So now one thing I want to be super clear about, this is not just for Instagram stories. This works for carousels, B-rolls, literally any type of content where you just want to keep the angles and the wrapping paper fresh, but the actual contents of the post are pretty fundamental. So here's the bone I have to pick with the viral coaches and the content people out there. They're always talking about virality, getting leads, but who's actually talking about their conversion process? Not a lot of people because they're not that good at it. So I'm gonna actually share with you a study that we did internally to say, do we get more leads if we create a landing page and ask for their phone number and their email and all that stuff? Or if we just keep it directly in ManyChat and say, what's your first name? What's your email? Here's the freebie. And we saw a 60% increase when we asked for the email directly within ManyChat and we don't have a landing page. So what we started doing was anytime that somebody opts in, the very first thing we ask them is, what's your email? And I'll send it to you. Then after their email, we say, what's your first name? And then after we send the freebie. So now you're able to hit the lead at 2 different points. One, your automation is going to pick it up because it directly integrates within ManyChat with your email CRM. For us, we use ActiveCampaign. And then from there, what you can see is that now you or your team can actually contact that lead because they're open within ManyChat and you can actually have a sales conversation with them. So this is now the opening point of the sales process, and this is where they move from a viewer to a lead. So before I actually go into showing you how this entire ManyChat funnel works, I actually wrote an entire guide on how to write viral carousels after nailing this for the last 90 days and getting over 25 million views organically. So go ahead and click the first link in the description, and now let's go inside my ManyChat funnel. So now, like I shared with you, most people are just talking about views and reach and vanity. I'm here to talk about conversions and what actually happens after the lead enters your ecosystem. So let's go into my ManyChat and let's see what happens here. So let's start with the AI prompts freebie, the one we just used on stories. So now this freebie has over 7,000 runs, and this actually just goes to show that we collected 4,000 emails out of the 7,400 that were sent. So not only, right, are we collecting emails, but we're also tagging them so then we can see inside. We use ManyChat as a CRM, who's actually opting in, who's clicking, who didn't get the freebie, and we're able to actually get more on top of it because we're making the system more efficient by messaging these leads after they opt in or if they didn't get it. So now what we do is we directly integrate with ActiveCampaign, and then from there we send them the freebie. Now this is a secret step that I don't see a lot of people doing with their ManyChat funnels, so you need to be doing this. So think about it. When somebody enters for a freebie, and they get a Google document with 27 AI prompts, there's really not much substance. Maybe they look at it for like a day or two and then they forget and they think about you a week later, yada, yada, yada. The problem is with the more low effort freebies, what we find is that people aren't really that bought in and they need a lot more nurture before they get on a call with you, and definitely before they pay you over $3,000 for a high ticket course. So what we actually started doing is sending a secondary freebie that we know is going to nurture them a lot deeper beyond the shorter freebie. So let's say, right, in this context, we're sending the Google Doc. Now, if you click here and you jump into the Google Doc, you can see it's a pretty simple doc. It's only 5 pages, right? So what we do is after we opt in, then we actually send them a message and saying, hey, if you liked the AI prompt, this is just the tactic. What's actually going to turn these prompts into a 6 and 7 figure result is the business around your content. I put together a free 7-day profit plan that shows you how to turn your content into a simple content to client system, why you're stuck and what to fix first, and how our clients use content and DMs to close high ticket sales on repeat. Want me to send you day 1. And then we actually go in to the 7-day profit plan automation and start a new automation. So this is so powerful because the problem that we were having was we would get a ton of opt-ins for something so simple and so digestible like AI prompts. But then what was happening was people were coming to the calls like, who are you? What do you do? What is this for? Right? So what we need to do was say, okay, that was just one entry point. Now we need to nurture them deeper and go further and actually build out this 7-day profit plan, which is a sequence of 7 days of emails to get them warmed up even further. So we talked about Instagram carousels, we talked about ManyChat, we talked about how we're going to get people to book calls beyond getting a small digestible freebie. But what we haven't talked about yet is what actually separates somebody who makes $50,000 a year as an online coach to someone who makes $250,000 per year as a coach and a CEO. And that is, you make business decisions based on what works, not on what you want. Because the thing is, the market is always going to tell you what it's looking for from you, and call it God, call it spirituality, call it divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, you have to understand that when you're getting a message saying, hey, I like this prompt, hey, I like this freebie, you double down. Because the thing is, yes, you have to put out content that you enjoy creating, but you also have to make really good business decisions based on data and feedback. So let me show you an example of how we do this week to week. So for example, right, if we look at a carousel that worked extremely well for me, this one right here, right, 56,000 reach, 931 comments, and 1,290 likes. So not only is this about Claude and writing carousels, but as you can see, we used a visual hook of a video as the first slide instead of a static image. Now, you might think that's cool and that's unique, but if you actually scroll a little bit further down my page, you're gonna see that we've used this same hook, video, and strategy many times over. So once we realized that it worked, we just kept using it over and over and again. So as you can see, it's pretty much, if not the same exact hook, and the same exact video and the same exact visuals. And this one did even better, over 2,000 comments, even though there's only over 1,000 likes. So as you can see, this is not something that we're doing just once over again, but then we did an even different test where we said, okay, what about if we just use Instagram instead of Claude? And this post performed like shit. It really didn't perform well. So this tells us that it wasn't just the visual hook, it wasn't just the style, it was the actual content that people want to learn how to use AI, how to use Claude, and they don't really care about Instagram tips because that's an extremely saturated market. So I think what's interesting as creators is that oftentimes we find ourselves saying, well, I'm the Instagram tips person, or I'm the Instagram strategy person. Did it feel out of the box for me to start talking about AI? Absolutely. but I just got better and better and better and spent about 3 to 4 hours a day using AI myself before I started teaching other people how to do it. So if I just stayed small and I said, but I'm not an AI creator, you're just putting yourself into a box and actually shooting your business in the foot. So for example, let's take one of my clients, Ashley. She is a web designer that now transitioned into helping other web designers get clients and build their web design business. So when she first started and she made her first 6 figures with us, she went from like 0 to 6 figures. It was all B-roll reels and really showing people the outcome of what they would get by growing their web design business. And then a couple months ago, we gave her a strategy saying that she should start doing more content creation tips because web designers are creative and they're probably content creators themselves, but they actually want to get more clients from social media. So she now started to take an Instagram angle of showing them Instagram growth tips or showing them content creator hacks and tips. So even though it's not exactly how to grow your web design business, it's actually showing you now content creator tips and talking head videos, a completely different format. Now her account's blowing up. She has over 11,000 followers, and when she started with us, she was at nearly 0. So like I shared with you, when she first started with us, she was making $8K a month in her first month of launching her high ticket offer. But now she's on average doing $15 to $25K per month because she's not only stayed consistent, but she's also opened up her strategy to actually expand and reach more people. And the most important part of this all is not about how much money she made or not about how many followers she has, actually that she just doubled down on what works and is just doing more of the same. So like I shared with you, this is the exact strategy I've used in my own business to make over $4 million through organic content creation. And you could probably tell in this video, there's nothing about trends or hype marketing. It's actually about consistency, sustainability, and longevity. One of my favorite sayings is that Warren Buffett isn't the greatest investor because he's just the smartest person in the room. He's the most consistent and he's been investing for a long amount of time. So the best strategy you're gonna have in your business, in your life, and definitely in your content is the one that you can sustain day in and day out and actually grow with. I don't think my proudest accomplishment is that I grew 50,000 followers overnight. My proudest accomplishment as a creator is that I've been growing consistently, and then each week we're going on and on and on. So for example, maybe one year I grew 1,000 new followers a month, but as of the last 90 days, I'm growing about 1,000 new followers per week. Consistency is always going to win, and that is the best strategy long term because it's all about the last one standing. So if you're already a niche expert and you're making at least $50,000 a year as a coach, a consultant, or a service provider, and you really want to scale to at least $250,000 a year with a straight line path to even get to up to $1 million a year in your coaching or consulting business, click the link in the description to learn more and apply for the Creator to Cashflow Academy, where we will show you how to make organic content in less than 2 hours a week that generates qualified leads, but more importantly, high ticket sales on the back end of your brand. Now, we aren't a huge program. We only take a small handful of curated clients each month. We care about quality more than we care about quantity. So if that's you, check out the link in description and let's see if we're a fit. And then if that's not for you, I have 2 other options. So first, you could definitely download the carousel playbook. I'm super proud of this. I've put a lot of time and attention into this, and it's also my most recent update strategy when it comes to carousels. And even better yet, if you want to learn how to actually turn your DMs into high ticket sales, which is the next step, go ahead and click this video here, and I'll see you in the next one.